Du hast nicht die leiseste Ahnung.
Very fluid. After a night of chaos, a military coup, it seems, has failed. And we have heard in the past hour from the president, who says the perpetrators will be treated in the same way as terrorists. Journalist Andrew Finkel has been reporting in and from the country for decades, joining me now on the line from Istanbul. How do you read the situation at present, Andrew?
Well, it seems that the coup makers have really run out of steam. The wind has gone out of their sails. Last night, they occupied the bridges for a curfew. They occupied some of the television stations, but they were basically outsmarted by the president, who, despite not having direct communication, used an iPhone, gave an interview on FaceTime. We're used to seeing him sitting on a golden throne and addressing his people, but this was a beleaguered Mr. Erdogan addressing his people, calling them to go out onto the streets, to ignore the curfew, to go to the airport, and his supporters appear to have been. And that seems to have really confounded the coup makers. But of course, it hasn't brought an end to the violence or the disturbances. Even as that was happening, the parliament in Ankara was being bombed, and we've just seen a communique from the coup committee saying that they haven't given up, that the thing is going on, and that people should stay home and not go out. Thank you.
The government saying that this wasn't a coup, suggesting that this was a full-scale terror campaign against the people. The president said this was against the people, against the elected government. He said this was against the ULF, and we've been discussing this hour that would be a narrative that would certainly suit the president should he want a full-on crackdown. Now, given the chaos that has been Turkey over the past few months, what is your view on what happens next?
Well, I think, the semantics of this is really quite interesting, because we've seen, for example, occupation of an Istanbul park a couple years ago, in which young people didn't want a park destroyed, and they occupied the center of Istanbul, and Mr. Erdogan called that a coup, the equivalent of a coup. He's of this cleric who lives in Pennsylvania, Fethullah Gulen. He's described him as a coup maker, and the pro-government press is full of the coup attempts by this religious leader. And now you have an actual coup, and of course he's not calling it a coup, he's calling it a terror attack. But of course it is a coup. It was an attempt by the military to, with all the paraphernalia of a military takeover, to take over the country. But what is unusual in the Turkish context is that it's not been a successful coup, or we don't know that it's failed completely, but it doesn't look like it's going to succeed. And of course that will be the first time that the military has put their shoulder to the wheel and then back. And so what we think must be the case is that this didn't really have the whole support of the entire military, but was just sort of part of the military. But it's not just a few troublemakers, since it was much more organized and detailed than that, but not the whole chain of command, which you really need in order to overthrow a government. So, why did they do this? I think one of the reasons was that they felt that they were going to be ousted from power, that there's next month there's what they call the military high committee, promotes and retires and basically changes the officers around. It's a sort of military musical chairs. And I think that these people thought that this was their last chance really to preserve their position within the army, that Mr. Erdogan was going to go after them. And I think he's certainly going to go after them now. So yes, this is a man who's moved, very successfully against his opponents, against the opposition. He's disarmed the opposition press. Most of the press in Turkey supports the government, which is one reason why it's so difficult to figure what exactly is going on, because everyone says what you expect them to say. There's no real objective description of what's happening in Turkey from the Turkish media itself. He's disarmed the judiciary. He's gone after judges, and now, of course, he's going to go after the last bastion, the military itself.
Fascinating. All right, and Erdogan supporters there attacking military vehicles. We do know that sadly 42 people appear to have lost their lives in Ankara. Andrew, according to the prosecutor's office,